Hi, my name is Dustin. I'm 28 years old. I'm gay, genderqueer, and I go by he, him, they, she, really anything actually. I'll respond to anything. It doesn't really matter to me. When I was younger, I had a lot of signs that I might not be growing up as a cis person. I started actually wearing high heels and stuff like that, just jokingly in my mom's closet, but when I was like 2 years old. It kind of evolved into like dresses and things like that as I got older, but my parents mostly tried to wean me away from that, I guess. They weren't super happy about it, so I didn't really get to play dress up and express myself as much until I was a lot older. I think the first time I started to really question my gender, I was about 15 years old, and that was the first time I'd ever really heard about someone being transgender, so that's kind of where I started going at first, researching more, trying to figure out everything I could. And I had got to a point where I actually even came out to my parents and told them that I was pretty sure I was transgender without knowing completely, and hadn't thought about everything, unfortunately, yet, but I knew I was different, and I just didn't know how yet. I had learned about trans, well, I don't know if it's a good way. I was 15 and I started looking at porn online, and I didn't know what it was, but then I started to research it from more of a medical standpoint and try to figure out more about who I was and kind of where I fit into all of this. Some of my favorite memories from coming out as genderqueer and just really embracing it is when I get compliments from straight guys. As weird as that sounds, it's a weird affirmation for me when they'll come up to me and they'll just tell me that I'm beautiful. I feel accepted, and I guess it's not just straight guys, but straight guys, I guess, it makes me feel a little bit happier because they have a little bit more drawbacks against doing something like that, though just the way masculinity is portrayed in our society. The first time I ever cross-dressed in public was Halloween. I think I was 13 years old, and I put on this awful, awful wig, and I think just some eyeliner and lipstick, nothing like crazy, and a really long skirt, and I just had on my regular shoes, and I went out trick-or-treating, probably looking like a 13-year-old like hooker. I don't know. It was pretty bad. People's responses to that weren't really bad. I did have one of my really close friends actually didn't even recognize me and was telling me how pretty he thought I was, so that was kind of cool. It was an interesting experience. I don't know. It didn't go bad, but it didn't go great. It was discouraged from doing it again. Mascara was definitely the first thing I remember wearing, and it's probably because it's gender neutral. It just makes it look like your eyelashes are huge. I think that's why it was the easiest and probably the first thing I tried. When I was working at an adult boutique, I had asked if I could wear makeup at work, and I was told that men weren't allowed to wear makeup at work, but women were highly encouraged. So to kind of get around the rules, I would put on a little bit of eyeshadow, just like a neutral color, and I would do my eyelashes and be all pretty. Just little subtle things that it wasn't enough that anyone could really call me out for it, but so I could still get away with it. So rebellious. This mascara. My husband's the first person I came out as genderqueer to. I don't know that I've technically come out to anyone else. Like, I put it on my Instagram, but I never really told anybody, and I think a lot of people don't know what it is, so I guess this is me coming out, kind of. Sometimes I kind of feel like I need to. I want to let people know that there's might be something about me that they don't realize. Like, it's not just me doing makeup. It's deeper than that. The first conversation I had with anyone regarding my gender was, again, with my husband. It was kind of tricky to bring up because I hadn't super considered a lot of things before we were married. I felt like I was being problematic bringing this in and just springing it upon him, because that's not necessarily what he signed up for when we got married, but he's an amazing person. He was 1,000 times more accepting than I thought he would be. So I first met my husband online, and we had hit it off really well. We were talking for like a couple of weeks, and then he disappeared out of nowhere. He like totally ghosted me. Obviously it worked out in the end. But yeah, a few months later I had messaged him again. He said he lost my number. I honestly don't know if that's true, but either way.
Does he still say that?
Yeah, he does. He still says that, but I don't know that I believe him, but that's okay. I don't have to believe it. We dated for about 3 months, and then he ended up moving in with me. He needed a place to live, and I was right down the street. I had the space. I could use a discount on my rent. he wasn't going to stay with me the whole time, but we just got along so well, he never left. We dated for about 1.5 years. Before getting engaged, I proposed to him. 1.5 years later after that, we got married, and we've been married now for 2 years. Our anniversary was just last week. The ones that I have some friends, let me think how to say this first. I've had different responses to friends regarding like my makeup and clothing changes. Some of them have been very supportive, they absolutely love it, and I haven't had any negative reactions. The biggest thing I've noticed is a lot of people are more caring than I realized they would. I've actually had a lot of people come up and they're just like, that's wonderful news. Like, is there anything I can do for you? What do you need from me? I have really supportive friends, which is super amazing, and they're more supportive than I realized they were. They've been totally fine with the makeup and clothes. When I realized I was genderqueer, I went out and I started buying a lot more makeup. Stuff that I can apply every day. I used to have a lot of makeup that I would play around with, but it was all costume makeup because I was doing drag as like a way, I think, to ease myself into it and work on my makeup skills in the dark, so that helps. I didn't end up doing drag all that long. It ended up being more spread out. I really only did like 4 or 5 shows total, including a pageant when I had like no experience doing drag in the first place. I decided it was a good idea to do a pageant, and that didn't go so well. Yeah, I would say it was probably only about the span of a year that I was doing drag, and 5 shows over the span of a year. That's not even 1 a month. I thought it was the right place for me, and it wasn't. I think the biggest milestone and goal I had for coming out and everything was just my husband's acceptance, which I have. He's the only one I was worried about because I'm going to be with him for the rest of my life. My family, I've kind of always told them that they just need to get used to some things, and I'm keeping that attitude with them. They're a lot further along than they were before. They're wonderful and very supportive now. When I first met my husband, I was wearing makeup. I actually had to come out to him. I felt like I needed to come out at least when we first started dating. I came out to him as a drag queen. I was hanging out with a lot of like mask for mascays for a while, and I didn't feel comfortable being a drag queen. They kind of gave me a hard time about it. They just saw me as way too flamboyant to be attractive, which was kind of hard to come to that realization, but I'm not doing it for them, so.
At what step did you feel like you were truly being yourself?
I honestly think I'm still working on that, because I feel like I have to hide myself a lot at work. So it's really only like on weekends when I'm going out to do stuff that I feel comfortable and I feel like I could go take on the day and just feel glamorous, kind of, and feel more like myself. There's basically no words that offend me. I'm probably the least easily offended person. Unless someone is specifically coming at me and trying to offend me and they're in my face calling me names, then I'm gonna get offended. But that's also very directed at me. If someone just says a word, it doesn't faze me at all.
What kind of struggles have you faced publicly with your gender?
I've gotten some weird looks. That's probably the worst it's been so far, though, but I'm also, I think, careful where I'm going. If I know I'm going to somewhere that I'm not fully confident in the area I'm in, I won't wear makeup that day, or I'll do things to avoid it. I have been jumped before. I was taking my little brother and my little sister to the park once with 2 of my little sister's friends, and as soon as I got there, I was the oldest one, obviously. As soon as I got there, a huge gang, literally a gang of kids, they all came up to me and they started asking me questions and pushing me. I don't really remember what they started saying, but I was just trying to walk away and ignore them, and they tripped me. They all started kicking me. I sprained my wrist, lots of bruises. One of them tried to burn me with a cigarette. Thankfully, they didn't touch any of the children. I think what's next for me is I want to just keep moving forward and trying to embrace myself even more. Try to see ways I can work things in. If I had to tell my younger self anything, it would just be, you're going to be beautiful. You don't need to worry. Things are going to be okay. I think a large part of me taking so long, but then finally coming out and being more open about being genderqueer is because of my husband. I don't know if I could have done it without him. I think I'd still be doing drag and trying to work through that. It's amazing to have somebody by your side.
Is that how you came out to your parents?
That's how I get.
With
them there, yeah. I thought I had to explain for a second. I was like, wait a minute, did I miss that bad?